The trades I'm about to make look dumb, but at least hear me out for my reasoning. Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going through my round 17 team preview for AFL Fantasy with a little bit of some funky trades as I try and just find something that will be a little bit of a differential, because look, I'm in 11k in terms of rankings, and I need to make somewhat of a move, and this is probably the best move that I can sort of make that will set me up for next week at least. I could do sort of an obvious move that would be sort of grabbing up Luke Jackson, etc. But I don't even know if he scores necessarily that well against Sydney. I'm trying to think, what did he score last time out against Sydney? He did end up scoring a 104 against Sydney last time out. I don't know if that was a dual ruck. I'd need to double check that. But yeah, I just think that there's a guy that I talked about in the uploaded AFL Fantasy Trade Targets video that did a really decent job, or could do a really decent job against Sydney. Sorry, not against Sydney, against West Coast. So yeah, I'm going to go with that one there. But anyway, let's jump into the trades. So the trades this week: Green and Ralston in for Sheldrick and Lord. Sheldrick, really loved how he's gone about it, but yeah, time to trade him out. Probably if I traded out Lord last week to Jackson, this move would be different. It probably would be Flanders I'd be grabbing up, but I just want to go with it with the likes of Toby Green. I know in round 15, if we just go to, this is Jackson, and I was just looking at his last games against Sydney, and if you look at it, when he doesn't really play CBAs, if he's just sort of rucking a little bit, you can see the ruck time there, CBAs, etc. I have a feeling he scores sort of 85, 90, but I don't know if he goes that big marker against Sydney, because you can kind of see it here in games where he rucks a little bit, but not really. I just have a feeling that Brady Grundy's going to be able to get over the top of him and Darcy, because we've seen it with Vizentini and Sweet alongside English and other Darcy, that the tall guys don't really matter too much, and the big body guys, he's sort of just back into form enough that he can do it. And you can kind of see that in 4 games against Sydney, he doesn't average the best, to be honest with you, when he's playing for Freo. 88.4 in 5 games and 95.5 in when he's playing for Fremantle against Sydney. I'm pretty sure those are all the games. So I would rather take a risk on a guy that's cheaper and set me up to grab up a massive midfielder next week who's dropping in price, and maybe grab up an Errol Goulden next week, even though he's got a 124 break even, because there's potential now, just looking at it, that I can grab up an Errol Goulden. If we think about it, that a guy is 230k, and if we think about that, Johnson is 441k and Angus Clark is 460k. That amounts to 901k, and we have 323 in the bank. So that is 1224. Now, Errol Goulden is 1,066,000. So if we go 1,066,000 out, I have 158k to in currently to play with. So I do need Zach Johnson and also Angus Clark to go up in price. If we go to this one, is it in this one? Maybe I can grab it a little bit quicker. If we go to the fantasy price projecting and we go to Clark, doesn't grab him up. If we go to Johnson here with a sort of 60 or so, 63, you can see there, with a 70 or so, hopefully he scores that. He goes up 50k. And with a 70 from Clark, if we say that Clark is going to score sort of a 60 or so, that's 22k. So hopefully that happens, because if that does, that's about 70k, and that gets me very much close to being able to purchase Errol Goulden if he goes 120. But maybe I have to wait a week with Errol and do something else. And I can tell you that there are definitely other options in the midfield, let alone elsewhere. If we go to here, you can see there's probably going to be maybe potentially a Max Holmes. There's also other areas that I can go to and turn to, like potentially a Tom Green, even though he'll have had the West Coast matchup. I actually want to see who does West Coast have next week that I could turn to. Potentially Port Adelaide. I've already got all the Port Adelaide guys. Who does Richmond have? If we look at we'll look at Taranto here and just grab up a Richmond matchup. Who do they have next week? They've got the Bombers, potentially. That doesn't really look good in terms of that. Who else is down the bottom? North Melbourne have got Melbourne next week, so that's not really a good matchup. But yeah, even guys like Jordan Dawson potentially could be looked at, etc. But yeah, Dawson, Goulden, Holmes will be right on the stretch. One of them will probably fall in. Could even look at an Ed Richards after this week because he did have a low week against Sydney, got tagged out of it, and could be back to his best as well. So he's a guy that I could potentially look at next week as well. And then if we just go to last 3-round average, see Holmes sort of is the guy to go to, as well as Brayshaw, etc. Pendlebury's going well, probably won't turn there. Even could look at Isaac Heaney, etc., who's doing pretty well as well. So yeah, there's plenty of guys that I could look at for Sydney, or other guys in general that are around the mark going pretty well. So I could look at that as well. And that would get me to basically this side of having Toby Green, Mills, Doherty, and then McCarthy as sort of that M8 area, and then Doherty M7. So I'd still need to fix up those mid prices, but I'd have guys like Ralston still on the bench, a little bit of cash out of Boxall, a little bit out of Gross, etc. that can be used. Once these guys like Gross could easily be used, 90k on top of Doherty to get to someone I feel like potentially, if as well as Doherty going up more in price in that time, he'd have another 2 weeks of cash generation, which if we look at his cash generation just quickly, I know I'm glossing over a lot of things quickly here, but if we go to Doherty and put in him scoring, say 95 for the next 2 weeks, he goes up a further 20k, and a further 20k on top of Gross would be absolutely mega. But if potentially he goes and scores a 105 or something, or 100 for the next couple weeks, he then goes up another 10k for an extra 5 points each per week, which would get him to 939k, and that's a lot easier to maneuver him on, especially if I've got the spare sort of 10, 20, 30k. That's when it starts to become very, very easy to move him on. Even guys like Simpson as well, 321k could move him on as well, to facilitate it. Yeah, but I'm probably going to need Ralston, Mills and Ralston together to move on. And then realistically to get to Jackson from potentially Toby Green or someone else here, we'll see how that goes as well. But there's also Jason Horne-Francis I could potentially move to in a couple of weeks' time in that forward area. But if we look to the forwards that are averaging well, it's Jackson, Dylan Moore as well as someone that I could look at over the likes of a Toby Green. But that would limit my options next week, I feel like. So, and I also feel like he's going to score pretty well. And also I could look at as well a Nick Martin. If he scores a 100, it's probably going to dip down in price. If we go here to Nick Martin as well, so that's sort of where I'm looking at. If we go to Martin and him scoring a 100, he goes down 35k and then 24k the week after as well. So it could potentially move a Doherty or even someone else like that to a Nick Martin straight up if he just goes and scores 100 for the next couple weeks. So yeah, that's what I could do, etc. Or potentially move someone else in the forward line to him. But yeah, I'm trying to get close to him as well in the next couple weeks, because that would be sort of what I want in that area. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it. Looking at VCs and captaincies, if we just look at West Coast, they have GWS. Let's actually just look at it. So could go Bontempelli into the obvious sort of Bailey Smith, which would be kind of obvious. Brodie Grundy, don't think he has too good of a game against the likes of Freo. Caldwell as well has Gold Coast, don't like that matchup. Caleb Strong's going to get tagged. Nick Dacos has Carlton, that's probably a tag. Bontempelli probably comeback week. Butters probably doesn't cop any attention. And then you got Rosie, who's probably going to score pretty well, Wingney, Malera, etc. So Bailey Smith is probably the obvious one there. So I think that is sort of the obvious sort of captaincy areas as well. So I'm going to do that as well there, Bontempelli into Bailey Smith. So anyway, that is the video going through my team reveal for round 17 and sort of put forward my plans a little bit, which will probably change anyway in the next week or two from what I had planned. But having money in the bank, it just makes these moves a lot easier. and there should be, I would hope to be, a rookie in the next couple of weeks that fires. But I think grabbing onto Ralston will be huge this week, as I expect him to go well against for GWS against West Coast, and looking at that matchup as well for Toby Green's sake as well, which will probably end up burning me, but might as well go down having a fling at it and trying to see if I can get into the top 10k. But anyway, that's the video. If you guys did enjoy, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on so you know when I upload, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which will be later today with my tips. I'll see you guys then. Bye guys.